My name is Richard, and I'm standing here with my friend Johnson. We grew up together, and we are both the founders of African Children Today here in Uganda. African Children Today has been operating in this Rakai area for the last over 10 years.
Rakai district was the epicenter for HIV/AIDS, and I was one of the victims. I lost both my parents when I was 12 years, and that meant I had to drop out of school for me to be able to look after my other 4 siblings, for them to study, for them to have food, for them to acquire clothing, for them to have what to eat.
I lost my mom, the last of my parents. I had 3 sisters. I was 11 and the oldest then. And I have so many memories of how we struggled to make sure we survive up to now. And I must say that if it were not for people that stood besides me and many other young people, it was hard for them to come through. We are who we are today because of the people that stood besides us. And when we completed our studies, realized that this community still has so many people, so many young people that are in the same place where we were in the 1980s and 1990s. And we chose to come back and walk besides them. And one of these people is Brian. I have told many people in this community, and it's my pleasure to also let you know that Brian is my hero, because he shares part of and much of the story that me and Johnson went through. And having been here in 2014, we came here and asked for the guardian, and we found him at 11 years. He acted as the mother and the father, the auntie, and everything you can imagine. When they lost their mom and their dad was unavailable for much of the time, life was really hard. We saw a young man, young as he was actually young and short. He worked so hard to make sure his siblings had something to eat. When you looked at him, there was nothing he was thinking about other than just his siblings. Life was very, very hard at the time when we arrived. They never had where to stay. Their house was leaking. They never had bedding materials. Food was really hard to get. But the most of all the problems were the food, because they had where they would sleep, at least. Though it was leaking, they had somewhere they would sleep. And they did not have bedding materials, but they would get things to cover themselves with. But the major problem was food. He would fail sometimes to get food for his siblings. He would wake up in the morning, go out to find where they would give him work to find food. And he would leave his 2 siblings with one who was a little older, Joseph. But he says sometimes he would go and fail even to find food, and would come back and they have to boil water and have the water through the night. Then the next day he has to go out again and find whoever could give him work to be able to get food. Sometimes he would get food, but on some days he says that about 2 days in a week is when he would get food. So what happened was I would go to the village to be able to look for food, to find people in whose garden I would dig so they give me food. And that made it hard for me even to go to school. I really desired to go to school, but I still at the same time needed to find food for my young siblings. Later they never had meals. He would go out to dig in people's gardens, sometimes to beg, because he never had time, especially on the days when he opted to go to school. In the evening he would come back to go and find a good Samaritan to give them food. Sometimes someone would give him a cup of flour, and instead of mingling it to have posho and create a solid food, because it wasn't enough, they would just boil water and put some in the water, and they would have that for the night. And about his education, he would go to school irregularly because sometimes he had to look for food. Then he says he would go back and the teacher has started a different topic, and it was really hard and difficult for him to grasp the concepts that had been taught because he was not always in class. Going to school was also a big problem because even when I managed to go to school, it was hard. I would be seated in class but would be thinking about what would be happening with my siblings back home. I would be thinking about how else we're going to have the next meal. So it was hard even to concentrate in class. Sometimes the way we would get food is by people in this community gathering some food and giving it to us. That's how I think one of them got concerned and knew about an organization that had food, and he went there, told them about our situation. When MannaPack arrived in this family, everything changed because we are then assured of having meals in this family. I would even go out and play. Even when I went out to play, I would know exactly that we have a meal for all the siblings. When we started having MannaPack, real life changed. We got energy. I saw my siblings that walked so slowly now beginning to have energy and walking faster. Then I started seeing hope in my siblings, the ones I was scared of, as especially Emma, being able, thinking they would pass any time. They started being strong and started walking. And Joanne, before received MannaPack, couldn't even talk. But once she started eating MannaPack, then she started talking. And although Joseph was my follower, slightly older than the other siblings, was also very weak. So I ended up the one fetching water, going to collect firewood. But once he started eating MannaPack rice, then he was also helping me fetching water and collecting firewood. When we started giving them MannaPack rice, things changed. And one of the things that happened was he had to think about himself now. I really did my best when I reached at school. I was one of the very disciplined children and I was always willing to help the teachers. But the problem was in class, I never understood the things the teachers were teaching. I struggled for some time, irrespective of the encouragement from teachers and help of my classmates. Some of them that were really very young. I saw that I was not making much progress in school, and that's how I went and approached uncles and explained to them my situation, and they allowed me to go and start learning construction. I got Brian when he was really young, but despite that, he was very, very interested and he has learned so many things. And I think he's going to be one of the good people this country will have as constructors. He's taught me constructing walls, laying tiles on the walls, and a number of other things. And I am picking up. Sometimes he leaves me to do work independently, and I feel that I am also learning. I'm so excited that everything Brian gives his heart to learn, he really learns it well. And I'm so excited that Brian is going to be one of the good constructors. I'm looking forward for tomorrow, where we have Brian that is into this community constructing houses. And then, what do you want Brian, Joan to be? Joan, you're going to be that.
Joan, teacher. Emma, pilot. Joseph, a doctor.
He already knows what his siblings want to be, and that's his line of prayer. Joan wants to be a teacher, Emma wants to be a pilot, and Joseph wants to be a doctor. He's looking at his siblings as his employers tomorrow. He's thinking about Joan and thinking about Joseph. Joseph becomes a doctor who will be able to give me a job and tell me, I want you to build for me this hospital, I want to build my house. And that's what gives him joy. But I want to just remind everyone, this whole story starts with food. because Brian and his siblings had food, and that's how we've been able to talk about all these things, because his siblings received food, they got healthier, and they're now at school. They also have dreams. They want to be some different people in the future. And world over, I want to say, this food, MannaPack rice, is saving lives, but also is creating lives and future people, future doctors, future pilots, future teachers, and also creating people like Brian that have really done everything possible to run through life, and because of MannaPack, life seems to have changed. I want to say thank you for packing MannaPack rice, and thank you for buying the things from the marketplace.
God bless you. We love you so much.